The morning sun cast a golden glow over the garden, illuminating the delicate petals of freshly bloomed roses. The scent of damp earth lingered in the air, blending with the fragrance of jasmine. I stood by the balcony, watching the gardener move through the rows of plants with effortless grace. His hands, strong yet gentle, tended to the flowers with care, trimming excess leaves, loosening the soil, and watering each plant with a precision that suggested deep familiarity. There was something mesmerizing about him, his quiet focus, the way his dark hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck, the sun glistening against his sweat-dampened skin. He was beautiful. I had noticed him weeks ago, but today, something felt different. Maybe it was the way he rolled up his sleeves, revealing the toned muscles of his forearms, or perhaps the way he paused to admire his own work, a satisfied smile playing at the corners of his lips. I should have looked away. I should have focused on my morning routine. But I couldn't. A gentle breeze carried the sound of birds chirping, and for a fleeting moment, I imagined walking barefoot through the soft grass, standing beside him, breathing in the same floral air. The thought sent an unfamiliar warmth spreading through me. Then, as if sensing my gaze, he looked up. Our eyes met, and a rush of electricity passed through me. It was brief, just a second, but in that moment, it felt as though time had paused. His dark eyes held mine, curious yet unreadable, before he dipped his head in a slight nod and returned to his work. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. For the rest of the day, my thoughts remained entangled in that silent exchange. Who was he, beyond the man who nurtured this garden? What was his story? And why did I suddenly feel this undeniable pull toward him? By evening, I found myself drawn to the garden again, this time with a deliberate purpose. I lingered by the stone pathway, pretending to admire the vibrant marigolds, but my real focus was on him. He moved with the same quiet efficiency, lost in his work, yet I sensed he was aware of my presence. The air between us felt charged, as though something unspoken had already begun to bloom. I took a slow step forward, my heart pounding with anticipation. I didn't know what I would say, only that I needed to hear his voice, to close the space between us. But just as I opened my mouth to speak, he straightened, wiped his hands on a cloth, and turned away, walking toward the tool shed. The moment slipped away, leaving me standing amidst the flowers, my unspoken words hanging in the air like petals caught in the wind. Tomorrow, I promised myself. Tomorrow, I would talk to him. The next morning, I woke with a single thought lingering in my mind: I had to talk to him. The silent exchange we had shared yesterday had planted something within me, a seed of curiosity and longing that refused to be ignored. Stepping outside, I found him kneeling by a bed of tulips, his fingers delicately pressing into the soil as he worked. He didn't notice me at first, too lost in his rhythm, and for a moment, I simply watched. Then, gathering my courage, I cleared my throat. "They look beautiful." He glanced up, startled, before realizing I was speaking to him. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, followed by a slow, measured smile. "Thank you," he said, his voice deep yet gentle. "I try my best." I stepped closer, the damp grass cool beneath my feet. "You're really skilled. Have you been doing this for a long time?" He wiped his hands on his cloth and stood, and I realized just how tall he was. Up close, he was even more striking, his sharp jawline, the way his eyes held a quiet intensity. "A few years," he said, studying me as if trying to read my intentions. "I grew up around plants. My grandfather taught me." There was something comforting about the way he spoke, calm, steady, as though he carried the patience of the earth itself. "What's your name?" I asked. "Rahil," he replied. "And yours?" I told him, and he repeated it once under his breath, as if testing how it felt. Something about the way he said my name sent a shiver down my spine. "You spend a lot of time out here," he observed. I hesitated. Had he noticed me watching him before? The thought made my cheeks warm. "It's peaceful here," I admitted. "And you seem to take care of it like it's something precious." Rahil's lips curved slightly. "Because it is. Plants respond to care. If you nurture them right, they flourish." The way he spoke made me wonder if he was talking about more than just plants. For a moment, silence stretched between us, thick with an unspoken understanding. The sunlight dappled through the trees, casting golden patterns on the ground, and I felt something shift in the air between us. "I should get back to work," he finally said, though his voice was reluctant. I nodded, but before he could turn away, I said impulsively, "Maybe you could show me sometime. How to care for the plants, I mean." His eyes met mine again, something unreadable flickering within them. Then, slowly, he nodded. "All right. Tomorrow." A smile tugged at my lips. "Tomorrow." As I walked away, I felt his gaze linger on me. The space between us had begun to close, and I knew, this was only the beginning. The following afternoon, I found Rahil waiting for me in the garden, a small trowel in his hand and a quiet expression on his face. There was something different about the way he looked at me now, less guarded, more curious. I felt it too, the unspoken tension pulling us toward something inevitable. "You're serious about learning?" he asked as I approached. I nodded. "Teach me." He handed me a pair of gloves, his fingers brushing mine in the exchange. Even through the fabric, the warmth of his touch sent a quiet thrill through me. "Start here," he said, kneeling beside a row of delicate white roses. "The soil needs loosening before you water them." I followed his lead, sinking my hands into the earth. The sensation was unfamiliar but grounding, the cool soil crumbling between my fingers. Rahil watched, his gaze lingering, before he reached over to adjust my grip. His hands, rough from years of work, were gentle as they guided mine. "You're a quick learner," he murmured. I glanced up at him, too aware of how close we were. "I have a good teacher." A slow smile spread across his lips, but he didn't look away. For a moment, the garden around us faded, the rustling leaves, the distant hum of life. All that remained was the weight of his gaze and the charged silence between us. "I've seen you watching me," Rahil said suddenly. My breath caught. "What?" He didn't move, didn't drop his gaze. "You think I wouldn't notice?" His voice was steady, but there was something in his tone, something knowing, something dangerous. Heat crept up my neck, but I refused to look away. "And if I have?" Rahil studied me for a long moment before exhaling softly. "Then maybe I've been watching you too." The admission settled between us like a spark to dry wood. I should have been nervous, uncertain. Instead, I felt bold. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. His lips twitched. "I wasn't sure if you wanted me to." I swallowed, the space between us impossibly small now. "And now?" Rahil's fingers brushed a stray leaf from my arm, his touch lingering. "Now, I'm not sure I can stay away." The words sent a shiver down my spine. A confession without hesitation, without pretense. I had wanted honesty, and here it was, raw, undeniable. Before I could respond, a sudden gust of wind swept through the garden, rustling the branches around us. The spell broke, but the electricity remained. Rahil cleared his throat. "We should finish up." I nodded, but as I turned to the flowers again, my heart pounded with one certainty. We were crossing a line neither of us wanted to erase. That evening, as the sky deepened into a velvety darkness, I found myself standing by my window, watching the garden below. The moonlight bathed the roses in silver, casting long shadows over the neatly trimmed grass. And there, among the whispering leaves, was Rahil. I had expected him to leave after his work was done, but he lingered, his hands resting on the wooden fence as if debating something. My pulse quickened. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my phone and sent a message. Me come upstairs. I watched as he pulled out his phone, his brow furrowing as he read my words. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, deliberately, he looked up toward my window. Even from this distance, I could see the conflict in his eyes. Then, he started walking. By the time I opened the door, my heart was hammering so loudly I was sure he could hear it. He stood in the hallway, his presence filling the small space between us. Neither of us spoke. Finally, he exhaled. "Are you sure?" I nodded. "Yes." The moment the door closed behind him, the tension that had been building for days, weeks, reached its breaking point. He reached for me, And I met him halfway. His hands, strong and calloused, slid around my waist, pulling me closer. The scent of the garden still clung to him. Fresh earth, roses, something distinctly asterisk him star. When our lips met, it wasn't tentative. It was urgent, filled with every unsaid word, every stolen glance, every unspoken desire. His fingers traced the curve of my spine, igniting a warmth that spread through me like wildfire. I had never known a kiss could feel like this, like surrender and victory all at once. We moved together in quiet understanding, the room fading into the background. The only thing that mattered was the way his breath mingled with mine, the way his hands memorized the contours of my body, the way I felt completely and utterly alive in his arms. Time blurred. The night unfolded not in words, but in touch, in whispered sighs, in the unshakable certainty that neither of us would be the same after this. Much later, as the first hints of dawn painted the horizon, we lay tangled in the sheets, his arm draped over my waist. The world outside was waking up, but inside this room, time had momentarily paused. Rahil's fingers traced lazy circles on my skin. "I didn't think this would happen," he admitted, his voice low. I turned to face him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "Neither did I." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Do you regret it?" I shook my head, pressing a soft kiss to his shoulder. "Not even for a second." And as he pulled me closer, I knew this wasn't just a fleeting moment. This was just the beginning.